Hi, everyone. Happy 10 years. I thought I'd start us off at Widener to make us feel like we're in person. So the artist that created this work, I met when I was 22, right after graduation. My job was as an art therapist in homeless shelters, and I learned so much doing that. One was how having limited resources can really lead to unbelievable innovation. So, believe it or not, Alan Chamberlain, who created this piece, made it out of one sheet of paper. So the black is all connected, and if you hold it up, it almost looks like lace. He just used an X-Acto knife and the sheet of paper and really patiently and talently cut it out. I learned so much from Alan, but also all of the artists that I worked with. One, that they were innovative. Two, that they didn't need fancy supplies. But three, that talent is universal, but opportunity is not. When I was an art therapist in Central Square, I looked at the amazing art that was being created in front of me, but also our tiny amount of wall space. And it was really sad to see a lot of the artwork would literally just get stuffed in closets. I was also surprised to learn that there are about 1,000 existing art therapy groups in homeless shelters and disability centers all across the country. So I thought, what a no-brainer. Why don't I create a marketplace, curate the top work from these existing groups, and then sell it to both individuals and corporations? So my brother and I put together 4,000 of our savings and started ArtLifting. It was a really simple concept combining art and uplifting of why don't we work with individuals who are homeless and have disabilities, and not only help them make money from selling original work, but also art prints and licensing it. Where this came from was after doing 4 years of volunteer social work in college, I had so many clients tell me, Liz, I want an opportunity, not a handout. And that really got to me emotionally. A lot of times I felt like banging my head against the wall when I was doing this work, because some clients I worked with one-on-one for an hour a week for years, and we applied to hundreds of jobs together. And they were really lucky when they got a rejection, because at least that meant they were getting a response. During these frustrating sessions of seeing people who desperately want to work, unable to find a job, I thought about, well, how can I redefine what a job is in order to include more people in the economy? I didn't have an immediate answer, but then when I was an art therapist, everything clicked. And I thought, well, if I can help artists who have this invisible talent make their talent visible, how can this concept spread to other invisible talents as well? So I'm going to walk you through the journey of a few of the artists that I've been privileged to work with over the last decade. This is Scott Benner. Scott, during the last recession, when we were graduating, lost his job. He was a steel worker. And it was tough as a middle-aged man trying to find work, but he was applying and applying and applying. But then he got Horner syndrome, which is a disease that makes you unpredictably dizzy and confused. So all of a sudden, Scott couldn't even apply for steelworking jobs, because if he was operating heavy equipment when a bout of confusion hit, he could kill someone. Scott calls this time in his life the perfect storm. Not only had he lost his job, developed Horner syndrome, but then his wife got cancer. Luckily, Scott had done everything right, and he had saved $200,000. Unfortunately, that wasn't enough. With both him and his wife unemployed, both of them with extreme medical expenses, that money ran dry within a few years. Scott ended up sleeping under the bushes by the Quincy tea stop. And when it got cold in October, he moved into a shelter called Father Bill's. When he was at the shelter, like most night shelters, he had to leave by 8 a.m. And since it's obviously freezing in the Boston winters, he needed to find a warm place to go. So he'd go to the library and he'd draw. Scott created this with a black pen and a white sheet of paper. His vision is unbelievable. His patience is crazy, but his hand control is what amazes me the most. This is his true masterpiece. He created it over the course of 1,300 hours, over 6 years. When Scott and I first met, it was kind of a strange meeting. So I had returned to Harvard after we graduated, about 3 years out, and I worked to run the Lowell House tea parties. That was an awesome gig because it was free room and board while I was starting up ArtLifting and not earning a salary for the first few years. So my office was Lowell D Hall, and Scott came there. It was around 2 p.m., so the after lunch crowd, and there were literally chicken nuggets on the table and all, the grease stains. And he brings his portfolio with these pieces. It's a duct tape closed portfolio with 40 years worth of work in it. So after making sure we didn't get chicken nugget stains on this piece, we got a game plan together of how to get his work out in the world. And it has been amazing to watch Scott soar over the years. This is him at Google. Google headquarters bought a lot of his artwork, and this is him giving an employee engagement speech. Deval Patrick has Scott's work hanging above his desk. And this is Scott on the Today Show and on the cover of the New York Times business section. He sold all across the world to 5 continents. And his artwork was even licensed by Starbucks to go on gift cards. Most importantly, his wife survived, and he now has housing, and is so proud to say that he's working as a professional artist. It's been incredible to see his work be appreciated over time, the value of his work appreciate over time. He has sold one piece of art for $25,000 and can now support himself. Next, I want to share stories of a few artists who aren't able to paint with their hands. So Mia, as you can see, is a ray of joy, and she calls this her magic wand. So she has cerebral palsy, and as you can see, paints with her head. If you can believe it or not, she painted this with her head, and she has sold all across the world as well, including the CEO of LinkedIn has her artwork in his office, and the Warner Media headquarters. So when you see this, it just looks like a beautiful living room. But then when you zoom in, you notice something's a little bit strange about this artwork. As you can see on the bottom edge, there are actually tire marks on this piece. The artist behind this work is named Eric Santamaria. And like Mia, he has cerebral palsy. But unlike Mia, he doesn't have enough neck control to be able to paint with a magic wand. So how he creates work is with the canvas on the ground. Depending on the day, he either has paintbrushes or markers on the back bar of his wheelchair. When I see Eric's work, I think, okay, you are the definition of resilience. Plan A didn't work, of painting with your hands. Plan B didn't work, of painting with your head. So instead of giving up, he still pushed and found a way to create. Another artist who really blows my mind is Michael's Lyric. Michael's is quadriplegic, and he doesn't have the ability to paint with his hand, head, or wheelchair. So one would assume, well, how could you possibly create art then? I was blown away when I got to meet him and learn about his creative style. So he calls his work photographic sculpting. He takes unwanted photographs and turns them into masterpieces. So he actually paints using voice recognition software. These artists teach me what's possible. They teach me what grit means, but they also make me wonder of, well, what other hidden talents are out there that we can shine a spotlight on? I think about the general movement of joblifting, of how could we move art lifting beyond just art and to music or woodworking or food. So I challenge you all to think about what hidden talents are around you in your spouses, your family members, your coworkers, and most importantly, those like the artists that I shared today who suffer from chronic unemployment. It's really amazing to me that these artists are so invisible that they're not even counted in the unemployment rate. The unemployment rate only counts people who are actively seeking work. But like those individuals that I worked with, applying to hundreds of jobs, a lot of people eventually give up because they realize, well, the economy's not a fit for me. After 500 rejections, I guess there's no chance. So I would love to work with you all to continue to think about how we can create jobs and make our economy more inclusive. Cheers to our class. I'm honored to be able to share these artist stories with you and to be your classmate. And thank you so much to the organizers.